Alrighty. Okay. Well, hello, listeners. Today we are joined by Chef Connor Flynn, also known as the Preserving Chef. Connor is a certified master food preserver who celebrates seasonality through fermenting, canning, transforming peak ingredients into bold, lasting flavors. I had the chance to connect with Connor a few weeks ago, and I love his approach in that food preservation goes beyond extending shelf life. It also connects people and communities at a deeper level. And we'll let him share more about that work in his own words. Well, Connor, we're so excited to have you here today to dig into you and to understand what your journey's been like and the incredible work that you're doing in the food industry. So let's kick it off.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to sort of spread, my passion and what I really believe is super important for the world today, especially in this country of Canada. So yeah, I mean, how did I get into this? I started just with my grandmothers as a kid, just kind of watching what they were doing in the kitchen, being fascinated by it, and then of course always enjoying eating the canned goods that they were making. So that's how it sort of started for me. And then in high school I got into cooking class, which ironically is what I teach now at a high school in London, Ontario. So I've come pretty full circle where I, was struggling in high school but made it through, and it was the class that really pushed me through, and I got into an apprenticeship, got my red seal. And then just through ebbs and flows of working in the industry, it's a pretty tough industry to work in. I left. I had some like alcohol problems. I sobered up, and then was flirting with the idea of coming back into the food industry. So I became a cheesemaker, and I was a cheesemaker for about 2 years in Stratford, Ontario, making like artisan style cheese from like goat, sheep, cow, and water buffalo milk. Then I kind of went away from that, got into sourdough bread baking, and kind of came back to the restaurant, started to get into education. Someone said, "Hey, go to teachers college. You love helping people and you love cooking and you love food." And went to teachers college, and yeah, we just simply started preserving food. I have a big family, I should mention. We have my wife and I, Laura and I have 6 kids. So we started looking at the food systems in the country and said, hey, like, when things are plentiful, they're less expensive and they taste better, and we should start preserving. My grandmothers did this, and let's get into this. And we did. That was about 10 years ago. Started doing it also at the high school level, and just really haven't looked back. I just think it's a really important skill that everyone should know and come to appreciate and see the deep rooted meaning and significance of doing that.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Connor, I'm curious, what is the your most favorite preservation preserved food that you'd like to teach to the high schoolers? What gets them all excited about?
Yeah, well, what gets me excited and them excited is definitely different all the time. But I think for them, because of the seasonality
Mm.
of food preservation and the school year and how they don't necessarily line up.
Mhm.
Because personally, fermented cucumbers, aka pickles, are definitely my favorite. And I think the students really love eating them, but the seasons don't line up. So I think
Yeah.
definitely the favorite amongst students is kimchi. Yeah, for
Mm,
Oh,
sure.
really?
Yeah, well,
love
because
that.
you
Wow.
could make kimchi pretty much any time of the
Mhm.
year in Canada, right? So they love kimchi. They love the process of making it, and then doing things like kimchi fried rice or fried eggs with kimchi.
Yum.
Just eating it as a condiment, they seem to really love that.
Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with kimchi. So you are, I'm taking this in for sure, and I can imagine all those flavors. And you mentioned the fact that
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be within a specific season; it can be really created and enjoyed all year round. Connor, when we connected first, you mentioned that, your journey into becoming a preserving chef. What does that look like? And I understand you're a certified master food preserver. What does that mean? Take the audience and us through this process and becoming certified in this space because my interest is piqued as someone who loves fermentation.
It's a good question. I mean, the Master Food Preserver program is a US based education course, I guess you'd call it, that is much more popular in the States. So in Canada, there are only 3 Master Food Preservers that I know of, and I'm one of them. And the other one's a good friend of mine. And the thing is, in the States, we see a different I guess you could say, educational infrastructure where they've really made it a priority to teach society or local communities how to preserve food safely. So, what it is just like a 4-day intensive course where you go through every form of food preservation minus freeze drying. And you learn how to do it hands on. Then you have to write a pretty intense test. And then, if you want to become a master food preserver, you have to then go and teach everything you've learned to the community for 60 hours, and you have to create a portfolio. Then they approve you. And in the US, you're then called to teach this voluntarily to the community or to society in general. So within Canada, that's interesting because that doesn't really happen here, right? So
Mm.
I went and got the certification basically because at the high school I work at, John Paul II in London, the health inspectors were coming in and kind of questioning, like, well, how are you doing this safely? And I had
Yeah.
already gone down the rabbit hole of investigating that there wasn't much in this country in terms of formal education or methods that were sort of government tested like they are in the US, where you have got the USDA doing actual sort of, what would you call it, test kitchen slash lab tests to see, what is the thermal penetration,
Mhm.
elevation, acidity, pH, all of these types of things. So I had said to the health inspector, well, maybe you could point me to some resources that are approved by the health unit. And they kind of put their foot in their mouth and, and backpedaled pretty quickly. So I had at that point said to the school board, we are preserving food and people are consuming it. So there's this course in the US that would really kind of there wouldn't be any doubt on the skill set and the methods we're using. So it would be important to go do this. And they were supportive in that. Then I came back the first summer, we started doing community canning initiatives where we're inviting families to get together and preserve food together and learn the safe methods. And then the families would take part of what we had preserved and we went our separate ways. So we did that for a summer and it was so popular. People had started to ask, like, can you teach us this? Can you teach us that? And my wife and I it dawned on us, maybe we should just start a business where we're teaching food education and
Mm.
food preservation more formally. And we've done that now for almost 2 years, and we've taught almost 2,000 people in person different forms of food preservation.
Wow.
Wow, how cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have so many questions on the food safety side. You're right, like food processing authorities needed in the US and here in Canada, there really isn't a standard guideline or method, right? You just have to prove that you're hitting your microbial limits. But even then, with fermentation, there's those microbes in it. I'm wondering if you do get into that detail, like how much do the students learn about the background of fermentation? It just goes, it's such a long, century long type of method in food that we've lost along the way.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I'm not a microbiologist by any means, but I'm fascinated by microbiology. I mean, if we look at just the food scene in Canada, most consumers don't fully understand where their food comes from. And
Mhm.
so in the
Yeah.
same way, there's a disconnect between scientists and microbiologists and the people teaching, fermentation, right? And so we've been able to collaborate at the school with the Canadian Fermented Foods Initiative, which is out of Western University Lawson Research. And we've come up with this great partnership where we're creating resources for people that are free. And part of the importance of it for them is they are, studying health outcomes, how it affects
Mm.
stomach cancer, diabetes, all these types of things. And they're trying to convince people to eat more fermented foods. And, for me, I'm trying to teach people. So if circle back, there's this big gap between consumer and people that hold the knowledge or the skill, or back to the farming example, like, people buy food at the grocery store, but don't really understand where it comes from. So I don't teach too much specifically on the microbiology, although I mention, what is lactic acid bacteria? What is the role
Mm.
of lactic acid bacteria in ferments? We talk a lot about pH and driving acidity, temperature, and, because the reality is most people aren't going to get a pH meter, and
Mm-hmm.
if they do, they're probably getting a cheap Amazon one that doesn't need to be calibrated. And calibrating a pH meter isn't just a simple thing to do, especially if you don't know what you're doing, right? So what I mostly teach is that generally when a vegetable ferment goes bad, it's very obvious and you can tell, right? And then giving some other advice like adding a bit of vinegar to their brine just to drive acidity, just sort of, yeah, that's my approach, more of a simple approach, and telling people that, ferments can go bad, but it's generally pretty obvious when they do.
I love that. Yeah, you have that certain smell and note. And I'm glad you brought up the fermentation in the microbiome
Mhm.
and the gut, especially now it's such a trendy word, the microbiome and the gut and and how fermented foods help our microbiome, especially in our diet. You mentioned off the before we started recording, you were at Probiota here in Vancouver. Are you able to share with our listeners about that event and sort of what are some learning outcomes from there?
Yeah, it was fascinating. It's the biggest group I've spoken in front of historically. It was about 500 people, and it was like a TED Talk size stage. So I was a little
Ooh.
nervous, but yeah, what did I learn? Again, this is not to sound negative, just that the probiotic industry is not very in tune with what's going on, sort of at the grassroots, right? So,
Mm,
one of my main points that I talked to them about was that they're in the business of, selling probiotics and encouraging people to have a better gut microbiome. And that's all great. But we have people on the grassroots or in the trenches that believe, whether it's accurate or not, that by eating fermented foods, they are getting greater health outcomes than taking like a supplement.
mhm,
And so, whether that's scientifically accurate or not, it doesn't really matter to the consumer, right? The consumer is going to do it because they believe in it, and it goes back to the romance of fermentation. It's the smells, the bells, people partaking, the hands-on aspect. So, I think that moving forward, even at the conference, there were some new supplements that were derived from fermented cabbages, right? I
mm,
think that there's probably a big opportunity for that industry to yeah, hop on the bandwagon of the popularity of fermentation for consumers or people that are wanting to know more about their food, participate more in what they're consuming, to whether it's creating new products, or maybe doing new research to show, the actual effects of eating fermented foods. And that's exactly what the Canadian Fermented Foods Initiative is into. And it's all, as you probably know, just about funding these research studies is complicated. If we look at one batch of kimchi that you make in Vancouver or one that I make in
Mhm.
Ontario, the
mhm.
cabbages are different. They're at different ages. There's different sugar levels. There's so much that could be different in each particular ferment that it's really hard to quantify on a label, like this much lactic acid
Mhm.
bacteria is,
Totally.
so there's a lot of variables, but all good things are not easy to do, right?
You
If
said
it was
it.
super easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting because what I love is that you're really drilling down and to be able to
Mhm,
to teach the fundamentals to students, but then also getting on these TED Talk like stages to also connect with industry professionals in this specific area as well, which I find super fascinating. When you are working with, say, students or industry professionals, like how do you communicate the benefits of fermentation and how do you make almost like this connection to like a traditional food that is still super relevant for today's consumer?
Yeah, I think I communicated like right where my feet are at is just that, if we partake in any part of preparing food for ourselves, that it's always going to be better. And I don't make any over claims because A, I'm not qualified, and B, the research isn't there yet. But it sure seems like the research is heading in that direction. I know that Dr. Jeremy Burton from Lawson just says, if we're getting people to eat more vegetables on
Hmm.
any level, that's a huge win, right? Even just for the
totally.
fiber alone, right?
Yeah.
So I guess, like all I have is anecdotal stories. Like even for myself, I have diverticulitis and I only ever had one attack. And shortly thereafter, I started eating fermented foods all the time and I've never had another diverticulitis attack. And I know countless stories of people saying that. And even if it's placebo, it's still a positive thing to have people eating fresh, vibrant vegetables that have a flavor that can't be created by the best chef in the world, right? No chef can recreate the flavors that are produced during lactic acid fermentation.
Yeah, and I love how you're also just really honest about, hey, this is my experience and this is what I'm learning. This is, if we can get consumers to eat more vegetables as a whole, we're in a winning space as well. I think there's a lot of proof to that as well. We talked about some of those workshops, workshops that you're teaching, almost like full day workshops. Could you share more about that and what you typically take people through? Who could participate? How do people get involved if that's something that they might be interested in?
Yeah, so our in-person workshops range. So we have like full day workshops. So like the canning one, for example, covers low acid canning, high acid canning, atmospheric steam canning. We will pressure can meat. We'll make jam. So they in the class itself, they do every form of canning that is currently out there and safe, and then they get to take a set of canned goods home as well. So it's quite the class. It's about an 8-hour class, and then we also teach shorter classes in the evening, like our lactic acid vegetable fermentation is about a 3-hour class. They go through um, just like the first one, a combination of lecture and hands-on, and each participant would go home with a ferment to take home, plus the knowledge, plus a course book. We also make it really approachable in the sense that they get to try everything. So we also always have like a harvest table so they can try all the different ferments that they're making or canned goods in the case of a canning class. And more recently, we started doing online classes, which in all honesty hasn't been very
Oh.
successful just because nobody really knows who we are on the internet. But we do have some pretty thorough online courses that were just an absolute ton of work to film and edit and put up there. So we're hoping that maybe that takes off a bit. But what we tell people is that, it's lifetime access because we're not, master class, right? It's just our business is just my wife and I and our children who help as well, right? So, but they are very thorough and it's broken up in a way where people can refer back to the online classes if they're looking for something specific, if that makes sense.
Nice. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think if you can reach all kinds of audience members across all
Mhm.
platforms, I think you're sharing your knowledge with them. And I think, people have different ways of learning as well, right? Like
Mhm.
some people just want to be visual and just watch it and then do the work or follow along with you. Um, I guess what I wanted to learn more about was is your classes held in Ontario, and whereabouts can our listeners learn more about your classes or your workshops?
Yeah, well, I guess the best thing is to go onto our website, thepreservingchef.com, or follow
Okay.
us on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook. We're not on Twitter, or it's not even called that anymore. But yeah, we kind of teach all over. What's been
Okay.
really great is that we're in a small town, so all of the agricultural societies have been really keen to have us teaching in their space, which has been
Oh,
great for a
great.
new business, just
Oh, that's
because they're
good.
not sort of overcharging the rentals. So we've been in
Right.
like multiple agricultural societies, which I think is really important because that disconnect between consumer and farm this is a
Mm.
space that is addressed directly. And then we're in London, Ontario. We teach. We're kind of all over the place. Like we're open to go anywhere. That's why we went to Vancouver and we were just in Montreal. Like we'll take the show on the road if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
it
love.
sounds like you guys are mobile, and well, you're taking your knowledge with you, and to be able to like fermentation can be done anywhere, and that's the
Totally.
beauty of this, to be
Mhm.
able to have access and to be able to educate folks wherever they're at. So, you mentioned you're in Montreal, you're obviously in Vancouver. Where are some of the far fetched places that you have gone to teach this curriculum, and perhaps some of the upcoming locations this year, maybe next year?
Yeah, well, in a week or two, I'm going to Saskatoon to be part of Canada Food Focus's farm tour, which is
Okay.
nice because I'm just going to be like a guest there. So just kind of sharing my thoughts, and so that'll be interesting. We were just in Waterloo. We've been asked to possibly go to Pakistan, which is a really interesting one.
Oh.
Amazing.
To educate a community of farmers who live up in the mountains and are having a hard time preserving their food. And so it would be us going to educate some farmers in Pakistan. So we're waiting to see how that goes because the world right now is a crazy place. So I don't think it's suggested you travel there right now, but we're definitely open to doing that. But upcoming, I mean, there's so many things on the go. Like I've been approached about writing a book about preservation in Canada because there is no book,
Mm.
which is
Yeah.
quite daunting to think about. Um, we're speaking at a homesteaders conference, national conference in the fall, and yeah, the things they just keep coming up all the time. So it's a matter of just kind of choosing what's important, what makes sense for our family. This
Mhm.
summer, I'm going to be at St. Joseph's Hospital and Parkwood Hospital in London teaching fermentation to patients that are there. Parkwood
Mhm.
Hospital is a long-term rehabilitation hospital. They have
Mhm.
community gardens. So one of the Canadian Fermented Foods initiatives is to get fermented foods into hospital food because hospital food is
Mhm.
atrocious generally. So this summer we'll be training doctors, nurses, and any of the patients there as a attempt to try to educate and convince people to include this into their diet. So
Okay, I was gonna go in on a quick question around so having, you have your red seal, you've focused on yeah, obviously more on the restaurant side, food service, and then really doubled down on this journey around fermentation, and then you've really carved your niche in this space as you're going through and educating. Like, what has that journey been like? Have you sought out these opportunities, or as you do more work as you're getting into this space, like does it just continue to, it sounds like more doors continue to open as you engage more in the industry.
yeah, great question and comment. Like when I spoke to Laura about this, my wife, like a year ago when this really started to pop off, we really didn't know where we were heading, and we still don't really, to be honest with you. We just said that if the doors keep opening, we're going to just keep
Mhm.
walking down the path, and all of these things just keep popping up, right? Like I didn't
Mhm.
ask to speak in Vancouver. The one in Montreal was also very exciting. This was a national food literacy education conference, and I
Mm.
was called there to speak about what I'm doing in my classroom with food preservation because it addresses things like food waste and
Mhm.
sustainability. So I think, the way it looks now is there's just people are inquiring and we're happy to share. And a really good friend of mine who is another master food preserver, Martha Rogers, she was the one that convinced me to take the MFP program. Um, it's just a matter of, we don't necessarily get paid for all of the work we do, like the hospital stuff, the Canadian Fermented Foods Initiative, like this is all voluntary and we just really believe in it. And, if we
Mhm.
are making enough money to not go broke and change the world a little bit at a time, that's more than enough for us.
How what an like a great mindset to keep going forward with, right? Like if all those good karma and that all good initiatives come through, that's just a great way for doors to be opening. Um, and like you mentioned, Martha, is there anyone that you want to a shout out to or recognize that has helped you along the way in this, wavering path of your career and your passion into this industry?
Yeah, I think the list is way too long. I'll try to mention a few.
I bet.
Yeah, the chef Mike Petrie was someone that was really pinnacle in me getting my chef papers after I had left the industry for so long, and he just said, you need to write your red seal, just complete it, so it's
Mhm,
done, right? And at the time, the Ministry of Colleges and Universities didn't want to honor my past experience, and he called them and yelled at them saying, "We need more good chefs," and,
Mhm.
he made that happen for me. Martha Rogers, as I mentioned, has been great. My parents, my wife, it really takes a village. There's too many people to name, right? And, what I've learned from all my struggles and teaching this stuff and helping people is that I'm kinda called to do the same. So when anybody needs help, If people want to take our course and don't have the money, we just let them come for free because this is such an important thing to know about, right? And it's human. It's very human. The process of preserving food, whatever method
Mm,
you choose, is so it's a way to go back in time without a time machine.
mm.
Mm.
Oh,
I
oh, I
love.
love that.
Oh,
Way to go
that's
back in time without a time
yeah.
machine. That's so true. All the different lessons. That is, yeah. I
Mm,
figured we figured the list would be long.
So long, too
It,
long.
yeah, and that's it's tricky. That's such a tricky question. I think as we
Mhm.
get into it with folks, but you know, this is so exciting. It's awesome to hear about your work, the work of your family that you are doing with your family as well, your wife and your children, which is so inspiring. You know, thinking about, you know, we're kind of partway through right now, but are there events, activities that you're like, oh wow, I really want to shout out, get people involved, get them aware as to what you're doing in the industry in the next few months or even next year that they can be a part of?
Yeah, I mean, we've started this. There's World Ferment Day is like in February, and so
Oh, cool.
we've been asked to be the Canadian ambassadors, and so it's like a worldwide thing. So I'd encourage people to check that out. If you're in Ontario, we're hosting World Ferment Day in London again, where we are going to be inviting people that have fermented food products, like more officially have
Mm,
businesses to showcase their products. We're doing workshops, and we've worked with some great companies like Putter's Pickles out of
mm,
Montreal or out of Quebec, and they send their products. And so this is a really exciting thing. Anything that Growing Chefs does, whether it's in BC or
mm,
London,
mm,
Ontario, I'm trying not to get choked up because they're such a wonderful organization. Yeah, and just checking out, what we're doing online. We're really trying to to take what we're doing in person online because unfortunately not everybody can make it in person, right? And
mm,
it's a challenge to do that. But yeah, just keep an eye on Canadian Fermented Foods Initiative. There's so much being done there. Check out their website. It's a huge website, so go to the resource section. If you want to learn how to ferment, there are how-to videos that we made that are really high quality with resources and recipes. And
nice.
just simply, if you have any specific questions, people can just email us. We're not gonna say no. So
Oh,
amazing.
yeah. Well, we'll definitely put those references on our resource page at the end of this podcast for sure.
wonderful.
Oh, oh, Christine, it is the
Is
time
it
of the
time?
show
Is it time?
for our
Okay,
favorite
already.
question. So this is our we do this every podcast. We get a question from a previous guest. So this question is coming from Jen DeVera. She works at Dawson College in the Office of Sustainability. Her question to you, not knowing who it was, is to try and recall a happy memory with as much detail as possible. So, what are the sounds, the smells, the tastes associated with this memory? What is this full sensory experience? How do you feel when you are remembering this memory?
Yeah, I'm gonna try not to get choked up. Oh, I'm already getting choked up. My my grandmother, who taught me how to cook, she would always make Dutch apple pie, and
Mm,
Oh.
I remember, after school, she would pick us up, and my parents were both working, so I would be outside playing in the backyard, and I would come into the house, and regardless of the weather, it would always feel warm, and you would smell, the
Mhm.
cinnamon and the apples, and the visual is the pie cooling on the counter, right? And
mm.
Mm.
I remember trying to get my fingers in there and my grandma saying, "Not till dessert," right? But yeah, just warm. It reminds me of my grandmother and the warmth, and
Mm.
I've got her crock now sitting beside me here. So uh,
Wow.
just memories of my grandmother and the warmth and the warmth of the spices in the pie, and just this, just feeling very at ease and at peace. The food has the power to do that, and that's what's so fascinating about food.
Mm.
Everyone can relate to it, and everybody has that memory, right? Which can be brought on just by a simple smell. And even to date, if I smell apple pie baking, it brings me right back there.
Oh,
Wow. Thank
oh my
you.
gosh,
Thank
that's
you
so
for
good.
sharing. Yeah. That's
Thank you for sharing
wonderful.
that, Connor. I'm getting the total visual. I'm starting to smell apple
I
pie.
know.
Yeah.
I'm smelling the cinnamon and the
Thank you
nutmeg.
for transporting us
Yeah.
to certainly
Welcome.
your beautiful time. Um, yeah, this is your time. What would you like to share? What question would you like to share to our next guest, not knowing who they are?
this was the only one I thought about in advance of the interview. So,
Okay.
Okay.
yeah. So my question would be, even though technological skills are really important moving forward in this world, why is teaching the next generation non-technological based skills so important?
Oh,
Wow.
that's a great
Oh,
question.
that's so good. So good.
Great question. We'll keep you posted.
We'll keep you
Can't wait
posted.
to hear
We'll
the
keep you
answer.
posted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll,
I
we'll
know
tag
what
you in
my
it.
answer would be. That's for sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, can we
Oh,
guess, or
can
shall
we
you?
do it?
Can you tell us?
Well, I mean, if you look at the world and just where it's heading, we've lost connection to like the land, to community, and all of these skills that, whether it's preservation or sewing or like building something, even with wood, like it just gets lost, right? And I'm a big believer in the trades as well. So I think that, the more we can empower people to know how to cook, bake, preserve, fix things, I think the better off we would be. And then if we had more people doing that, we could have more educators to
Mm.
teach people and inspire young like youth in general to that there are other ways to make a living, get a career, that it's not all sort of sometimes what's taught at schools, right? That you need to be good at math, English, all these types of
Mhm.
things, right? Because I know my own experience in high school was that I didn't feel very smart, but it was the opposite. I was very creative and talented, but there wasn't really a muscle to sort of flex there.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
if people could have skills, more skills, then I think the world would be a better place. Yeah.
Awesome.
I agree. Well, before we end, I want to
Sure.
know, what is fermenting in front of you right now? You showed us really quickly and you talked about your
Oh, yeah,
grandmother's
no,
progress.
nothing. This is just well, that bigger jar was our SCOBY hotel, and this is just a mini one.
Mhm.
Oh, got it.
A mini hotel.
We
It's
have
Mini.
a.
been fermenting, yeah. Upstairs, we have fermenting turnips and
Ooh.
cucumbers, even though they're not in season. And then we just fermented asparagus, a whole bunch of asparagus.
Ooh.
And we fermented some wild leeks recently and some rhubarb. And then at the conference, each participant in Vancouver, after my talk, got to go home with a bag of fermented, a Vaxil bag. So it's like Vaxil fermentation of
Mhm.
Ooh.
turmeric, carrot, and ginger.
So cool.
Oh,
I think I saw
so
that on
good.
LinkedIn,
Oh,
maybe. It
Yeah,
sounds
you have
delicious.
no idea how difficult it was to coordinate that, because you can't bring anything on the plane. So
Mhm.
one of our bags was Vaxil machines and bags. And then I had the Weston Bayshore wouldn't let us use their kitchen. So I knew a chef at the Fairmont Pacific Rim. So that
Hmm.
chef ordered the vegetables there for us and gave us 6 hours of kitchen time there to prep it
Wow.
all and to Vaxil ferment everything. And then, of course, for show, we had like a demo table where we were fermenting live, but
Oh, wow.
you can't like ferment 500 bags on the fly for people.
No.
So we had like 300 bags done, right? So yeah,
Oh my gosh.
Wow, what a show.
Logistics. That's
yeah,
amazing. And also logistics and having those connections to get it done,
yeah.
which is amazing. Those relationships.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Connor, thank you so much for your time, for your
Thank you.
energy, for all the work that you're doing. You and your whole family
Mhm.
are doing in this industry, and sharing knowledge and passing this to youth, but then also to everyone. So really exciting work, and we can't
Thank you.
wait to hear what's next for you guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks for inviting me and letting me kind of spread the word a bit more, because that's what it's going to take to make big change. So,
I love
Big
it.
time. Well, thank
I
you
love
so
it.
much.
Thank you
okay,
so
you're so
much.
welcome, and I look forward to hearing it.
Thank you.
And
And scene.
scene.